TriCorps really formed with um, the pathologists from the different organizations getting together and looking at what we were performing in the laboratories and what we were sending out. And after discussion, um, we decided, this was 1998, 97 maybe even, that if we could approach the administration of the organizations and combine the areas where we overlapped, that we could build a more efficient laboratory that could offer more services, because really in the areas where we could collaborate instead of compete, we could save money and offer better service and offer better coverage. And this was fairly esoteric parts of the laboratory, a transplant area, toxicology, molecular and anatomic areas where we just didn't have 24/7 coverage. Microbiology and infectious disease was really an area too, where we had two fully functional microbiology labs, but they weren't staffed for 3 shifts. Nobody was there overnight. So that was the driving force behind it. And the initial meetings were actually with a much broader group of people than Presbyterian University and St. Vincent's. Lovelace was there at the time, St. Joseph's was there at the time, the VA was there. But after weeks of looking at various things, it came down to Presbyterian University and St. Vincent's, as a minority owner, decided to move forward with it. Some of the biggest initial challenges was really just getting the move after the pathologists were convinced, to move that down to the whole workforce, to get people thinking about, well, am I a university employee or am I a TriCorps employee? Am I a Presbyterian? I mean, I've been a Presbyterian medical technologist my whole career. Now I'm going to be something else. So actually messaging it and making sure that this wasn't a consolidation to reduce the workforce at all. That was never an intention at all, and it never has resulted in decreased FTEs. So people need to be convinced. That was one thing, just kind of calming the culture, and then really getting the workforce to focus on the work. So bringing our best med techs to the table in a chemistry work group, a hematology work group, coag, molecular, AP, all those different disciplines in the laboratory had a very focused work group of 6, 8, 10 med techs and a pathologist to really work through how are we going to pull this together? Where is it going to physically reside? Who's going to do the work? What menu do we need to support our hospitals, and what could we do at a core lab to make the hospitals more efficient? All of those details had to be worked out in those work groups. We met regularly, once a week at a minimum during the initial days, and really looking, because then we were on different chemistry platforms, different hematology platforms, and we didn't have the capital to do a big bang and switch everything out. So we had to plan over, I think, almost 8 to 10 years really before everything was standardized. But the goal was from the very beginning that by standardizing we could make a more efficient laboratory, a more efficient workforce, because it would be the same hematology analyzers whether you were at Press Main or university or one of the regionals. So convincing people what to standardize to. Medical technologists are very partial to their current instruments, so that was part of it, getting different people together and deciding which would be the best instrument. That required 5 years. The original core lab was up on Stanford, just north of I-40. It was a plumbing supply house. It was prefab concrete. It was just like a probably the size of 2 basketball courts, completely open, very hard to control temperature, very hard to control noise. It wasn't optimal, but it actually worked pretty well. It had easy access. Couriers could get in and out. Just to have a place where everybody could could send the outpatient work was what the original core lab was for. I mean, had grown out of it a week after we moved in. It was clear that that was not a long-term solution. But it let us pull that work out of the hospitals so we could reconfigure the hospitals to really focus on the emergency rooms, the intensive care, and the very esoteric clinics at those hospitals, so that that is what that workforce at the hospital focused on. Not a lot of outpatient urines or CBCs or chemistries coming from a routine internal medicine clinic. Those all can go to core lab and be dealt with fine and efficiently, but the hospitals refocusing them really on the intensity of the care they provide for the ERs and the ICUs. There's a lot of urban legends about TriCore. Dr. Horvath was scribbling on the back of a napkin, and we were thinking about the 3 sponsors, but we were also thinking about our teaching, research, and clinical care mission. I think it's honestly been lost in everybody's remote memory as to how we came up with TriCore, but it was, in my remembrance, it was really the 3 sponsors, TriCore, 3 legs of a stool, if you will, as a stable structure. There was a lot of things kicked around, but it's worked and it's stuck, and honestly now we have such brand recognition in our local state and our region, I don't see any reason to change it.